Hello everyone, it's GigaBeef here, and today we're checking out how the new armors stack up in patch 13.5 and what's the best to use at this early stage in the wipe from class 2 to class 4. So first up, there are 4 new armors in the game, 2 armored rigs and 2 regular armor vests, but interestingly they are all class 3 except for the singular vest at class 4 on Peacekeeper 2 of all people. The one that most of you will have noticed so far is the Cora Coulon, as this is on Ragman 1 and finally gives us a cash alternative for a class 3 armor on the traders right from the word go, and it's 48k, which is pretty good value. There are 2 variants of this, the green and the black version, but the black edition requires a raven and is a barter, so I don't think we'll be seeing much of this one. Previously, the only way to escape from class 2 hell was to use the tan 6B516 at 56k, which is not bad given it has a rig inbuilt, but the combined rig and vest together makes it much harder to upgrade in raid. With the Cora Coulon, you can load in with a very cheap rig and swap it out with a scav much more easily later on. The same goes for swapping the armor itself in raid as well. Finding a ceramic class 4 on scavs is actually a decent upgrade early on, and with the Cora you can insurance ford it in a bush to take it without losing out. The main thing to bear in mind with this armor is it's extremely heavy. At 11.1 kilos, it doesn't leave that much room for low strength level PMCs to stay underweight with the rest of their kit, so just be aware of that. In terms of protection, this one sits around the middle of the pack, i.e. very similar to the press armor but not quite as good as the Cuirass or the 2 new rigs, but do bear in mind that it is thorax only, so your stomach is unprotected. With plenty of flesh damage rounds about early in the wipe, this can be pretty dangerous as shotguns and hollow points will mess you up big time if you get hit there, especially as this is when you're least likely to have a CMS to fix the problem or have lots of food to get out with. On the plus side, the spillover from the stomach has been decreased, so it's not as bad as it used to be, but you still don't want to get shot there. This thorax only coverage is the same as the 2 new class 3 rigs as well, the Wartech TV115 with the bear patch on it and the Eagle Allied MBSS with the USEC patch. These both have very similar protection to the 6B5 Ulate that we mentioned before, but they are very light at around 5 kilograms for both. Now unfortunately there is no way to actually buy these really early on because they are found in raid only and they come from rogues and raider kits, but they are sellable on the fleet because of their low armor class. Although the Eagle Allied rig is slightly more protective, I actually think that the TV115 is probably a little bit superior due to its layout overall and 13 slots versus the MBS's 12. It's almost a shame that these ended up being class 3 actually, because this is the perfect rig to run 40 rounders with 3 3x1 slots, so keep an eye out for this one in December when we get the armor plates update. All of these new armors so far repair extremely well because of their material, and you can pick the rigs up relatively cheaply sometimes on the flea. However, at class 3 I wouldn't be paying more than 50k for them personally. The 4th piece of armor that was added was the Interceptor OTV, accessible on Peacekeeper 2, and this is barter only, requiring 2 topographical maps, which prices it at around 90k currently, but players need those for the Intel Center, which is likely propping up the cost a little bit. It's also available on Ragman 3 for 93,000 rubles too, but overall I think this is probably a little bit too expensive for the protection that it actually provides. This protection is in the bottom half of the list, but it isn't awful, being very similar to the 6B3TM, the Strandhog and the Thor, but while Peacekeeper 2 is the earliest level 2 trader at level 14, at 1 level higher the flea market unlocks at 15, so you can generally find most standard class 4 armors there at about 70,000 rubles instead. In my opinion, this makes the Interceptor unneeded most of the time. However, one place that it might be useful is Punisher 4, where you have to wear a scav vest, as there are very few standalone class 4 armors to wear under it, so at least this gives another option for that. The main problem with the Interceptor is the ceramic material type. This makes the effective durability much lower than you'd expect, despite having 60 in-game, and it also repairs badly when you get it out of raid, so is usable for fewer raids where it gets damaged than some of the others. If you're new to the game and you don't know what effective durability is, go and watch this video here which will explain everything. Alright, so now that we've covered the new armors, what should we be using in our raids? This wipe, I personally gave up using class 2 entirely with the new Cora Coulon, but it does mean that you're spending 50k every time you die, which pre-fleet is not actually a small amount of money. If you're a pistol runner or a Mosin man, investing a small amount in a class 2 is likely a good idea because it will save you from buckshot blasts to the thorax as well as other annoying bullets like 7.62 by 39 HP. Even the new 7.62 by 54R bullets such as HP and SP shouldn't be able to one-shot you through class 2 because of the damage reduction that armor provides, and it doesn't have to be the packer either. The 6B2 Flora is slightly cheaper on Ragman 1, and for extreme budget runs later on in the wipe, one of the cheapest armors in the game is the Module 3M, which often sells for extremely low prices on the flea. In class 3, pre-flea, either the Cora Coulon or the 6B5 rigs are okay, but once you get to level 15, the cheapest armor is almost always the 6B20 23.1 on Prep War 1 for a propane. You can do this before the fleet, but buying it from there is much easier, and I just checked, it's currently under 30k, which is very fair for a well-repairing Class 3 armor. It doesn't have as much protection as some of the others, but for a super budget price, it does the job. I try not to spend too much on Class 3 as many bullets go straight through. After about 30 penetration, it's no longer saving you, which includes the new round 7.62x54R FMJ, the old 7.62x39 PS and C45, M855 for 5.56, as well as 5.45 PS, you get the idea. The Cuirass and the Press are also okay if you see them cheap on the flea market, but I generally find that the 6B23 propane barter is more consistent for low prices. This means that Class 4 is, once again, the staple of the early game if you don't want to die in 2 or 3 shots to common ammo, i.e. force players to pay for bullets higher up in the progression to take you down. In here, the Trooper is still the king of overall durability, but at well over 100,000 for a new one, or 100k-ish including repair costs for a cheap one, it's pretty steep, especially considering half the time you just get shot in the head and die regardless. You can't buy any Class 4 armor pre-flea market anyway, so the best way is to headshot scavs and take their lower grade ceramics in raid when they spawn with them, namely the 6B13s. Yes, these have the lowest durability in Class 4, but they will absorb even some semi-decent rounds for one fight, so they are far superior to the Class 3 armors. On the flea market though, these are actually still pretty expensive, costing about 65,000 rubles for a new one, and I'd be really careful about buying the nearly new versions because they can't be repaired back to full due to their ceramic material. For spending in cash, once you get to level 17 and Ragman 2, you're probably better off just using the 6B3TM from Ragman himself, and although it's more expensive than it used to be, at 70k you do get a few repairs out of it given it's titanium rather than ceramic. You can sometimes find these for about 70k on the fleet as well if you've just got to level 15 and don't have Ragman 2 yet, but once you do, there's a barter for it as well, which usually comes out to about the same price, but this lets you buy more than one per reset because Ragman only gives you one per cycle on the cash version. The MMAC rig barter is another decent option that repairs extremely well and has a good layout, and picking the components off the fleet at the right time can get you to about 70,000 rubles for that if you are careful. Don't spend much more than this because it's a thorax only armor and it doesn't have that much more durability than the 6B3TM, but it is a nice lightweight piece of armor for the early game. 3 more to check if you're really looking around is the ANA Tactical M1 and M2 rigs, as well as the NFM Thor, which are still fleet eligible. These are often pretty expensive, but sometimes you can catch a bargain. The ANA rigs are some of the best in Class 4 and a very good value at Ragman 3, but earlier than this, if you can get one for 80k on the fleet, that might actually be worth it given their excellent storage, low weight, and full thorax plus stomach hitbox protection. So this brings us on to the ultimate budget choice that I've actually been using recently, which is the 6B5 Ulay. Yes, it's massively heavy at 12.2 kilos. Yes, it's the second worst Class 4 in the whole game, but the barter on Jaeger is sometimes too good to pass up. For 3 soaps and 4 toilet papers, if the prices are normal, let's say 8k for the soap and 9k for the paper, this comes to 60k rubles, which already looks fairly decent. But if you keep these on your wish list and you check every now and then, you can sometimes grab soap down to 6k rubles and paper at 5, which comes to 38,000 rubles for a Class 4 armor. Now that, my friends, is a bargain. If your playstyle is anything like mine, you can actually get away with using this a bunch, simply because I either tend not to get hit at all, or I die horribly in a split second, which is the reason that I have to cheese Vitality every wipe. Players are incredibly unlikely to take it because of its weight, plus the fact that it takes up more space in your bag than it gives back to you in rig space, and it repairs like a dog, which makes it great for insurance. But like all Class 4s, it will still stop a 7.62 PS round from entering your chest about 70% of the time on the first hit. If you're a much more run and gun type of player and find yourself healing from 1 HP in many raids, then this is probably not the armor for you, as after one fight it practically needs to be thrown in the bin, but I think there are plenty of you out there who would be able to use this just fine and save money whilst doing so. So next up, go and check out why I think 5.56 is really viable early on from level 14, especially with the G36C in this video that I did earlier. Otherwise, as usual, a big shout out to all my patrons, and as always, have fun in your raids.